second graders, it's Mrs. Cole here. Today we're going to be talking about migration. We're going to watch a quick video that tells us about migration, meaning what it is and what does migrate and why do those things migrate. And then we're going to read a quick story about a journey that some birds take when they do migrate. And then in another video, you're going to do an activity with me and some helpers using some of the materials that you got in your distribution bag. So for right now, just sit back, relax, and listen very carefully as we figure out what migration is.
On a trip away from home. Maybe you travel in a car to see some family or took a plane to go somewhere fun on vacation. Well, did you know that a lot of animals take trips too? Many different kinds of animals move from one place to another, and when they do, we say they migrate. But not all kinds of trips that animals make are considered migration. When Squeaks moves from the lab to the kitchen, we don't call that migration. Sorry, Squeaks, but maybe we can call it snack time. Most of the time, migration means moving over a long distance. So animals can migrate to different parts of the country or even different parts of the world. Now, migrations also happen at a certain time. For example, you might have seen birds flying south for the winter. That's a kind of migration, but they're not just going on a trip for fun. Animals migrate for good reasons. Many birds migrate in the winter because the weather is just too cold for them, so they need to go someplace warmer. Other animals migrate long distances to look for food. And sometimes creatures migrate so that they can have babies in a place they know is safe. It doesn't matter if the animals move over land, through water, or in the air. If an animal moves a certain distance and does it at a certain time, it's a pretty good bet that they're migrating. So what are we waiting for? Let's take a look at some cool animal migration. Let's meet the champion of migration on land, the caribou. Caribou live way up north in places like northern Canada and the state of Alaska. And one group of caribou, called a herd, moves around this area in a big loop, and they do it every year. For most of the winter, this herd of caribou lives here, right on the border between Canada and Alaska. Then in early spring, around April, the caribou go on the move. They travel about 600 kilometers north to an area near the ocean. And this place near the coast has lots of good food for the caribou to eat. So this is where the mother caribou have their babies. But it's not such a great place for long. And that's because by the middle of summer, the coast becomes home to big swarms of mosquitoes and other biting insects. So the herd goes on the move again, but this time they move away from the ocean. Then in the fall, when things start to get really cold, they move back down south where there's more food and the weather is less harsh. Finally, when spring arrives, they start all over again. And at the end of the year, some of these caribou have walked almost 5,000 kilometers. Whew. Now when it comes to migration in the sea, whales go farther than any other kind of animal. Lots of kinds of whales migrate, but the whale that migrates the farthest is this one, the humpback whale. Most kinds of humpbacks spend the summer in cool waters up north, near places like Alaska. All summer, they eat things like shrimp and small fish, building up the energy they'll need for the trip they're about to take. When the water starts to get too cool, the humpbacks swim south to warmer waters, near Hawaii and other tropical islands. There, the whales rest and have their babies, and they stay there until the babies are strong enough to swim back north. And it can be a long swim, too. The longest recorded swim for a humpback whale is over 15,000 kilometers. But one animal that's in the running for making the longest migration ever is the Arctic tern. This bird isn't very big. It's only about the size of the ruler you use at school, and some of the time it lives near the North Pole. When winter comes, though, it doesn't just go a little bit south. The Arctic tern flies over 35,000 kilometers to the very tip of South America. That's about as far south as you can go. It's not only one of the longest migrations by air, it's one of the longest migrations made by any animal. How do all these animals find their way? After all, they don't have maps or phones or computers like people do. Well, different animals have their own ways to keep them from getting lost. Some animals look to the sky and use the stars, moon, and sun to help them find their way. Others stay on the right path by watching the landscape and following features like mountains and rivers. Caribou, humpback whales, and Arctic terns are just some of the animals that make these amazing journeys. But fish, insects, and even jellyfish migrate too. That's something to think about the next time you're on a trip. Thanks for joining us on SciShow Kids. Do you have a question that you'd like us to answer? Ask a grown-up to help you leave a comment down below, or send us an email to kids@scishow.com. See you next time.
Okay, so that was a quick video of what migration is, what migrates, and why they migrate. So remember, migration is to move from one place to another. Typically, it's a longer journey, but for just your understanding purposes, it can just be moving from one spot to another. All right, we are going to read a book on Epic about migration. It is called The Long, Long Journey, and it's a book about the migration of a godwit. Now, a godwit is a type of bird. I'm sure it's probably something you've never heard of. I've never heard of them either. So let's go ahead and listen as I read to you this story about the godwit's migration. The Long, Long Journey, The Godwit's Amazing Migration by Sandra Markle, and it was illustrated by Mia Posada. Crackle, crackle, crunch. The little female bar-tailed godwit at last breaks free of her egg. She steps into the world on long, wobbly legs. It's nearly midnight, but it's June in Alaska and still light. A cool wind blows the chick's downy coat. She shivers, lifts her beak, and squeaks. Beep, beep. The little female was the last to hatch. Two sisters and a brother are nearby with their father. They are hunting insects in the grass. Their mother next to the nest trills softly, and the chicks come running. They huddle with their sister, and their mother settles over them. This way, the newest chick stays warm and joins the family. For 2 days, the chicks stay close to the nest. Their parents take turns sitting on them to keep them warm. In between these rests, parents and chicks search for food. The parents need to double their body weight before fall. The chicks need to grow up and become strong. The little female learns to hunt spiders, crane fly larvae, and beetles. She eats all she can find. Soon the little godwit and her family wander farther as they feed, but they are rarely alone. Lots of other godwits nest and feed in this treeless land. Sometimes other hunters come searching for food too. One day, an Arctic fox sneaks up and slips close to the little female. Make a prediction. What do you think is going to happen? Let's find out. But her father spots the fox and squawks a warning. The little female is not yet able to fly. She crouches low and stays still. Her coloring helps her blend in with the grass. Her father flaps his wings and swoops at the fox. Her mother joins the attack, and so do other adult godwits. The fox runs off without its meal. For almost a month, the female godwit chick eats and grows bigger. She also grows feathers and loses her fluffy down coat. When the chick isn't eating, she's hopping and flapping her wings. Her wings grow stronger with each hop flap. Then one day, the young female godwit hops and flaps hard. For the first time, she does what godwits do best. She flies. In mid-August, the mother godwit leaves. The young birds stay near their father. They eat and practice flying hour after hour so their wings grow even stronger. At last, they follow their father to the coast. They join thousands of godwits gathered on Alaska's Cape Avanoff mud flats. The young female prances across the mud on her long legs. Every step or two, she pokes her long beak deep into the muddy ground to find and eat tunneling worms and tiny clams. In September, flock after flock of adult godwits leave the mudflats. By mid-October, mostly only young birds remain. The young female is one of the flock. She practices flying with the other godwits. In between flights, she feeds alongside them. She eats and eats, growing very plump. Finally, when dark clouds sweep overhead, the young female rises with the flock. She's pushed southward by strong winds. Her long journey has begun. The young female flies through unfamiliar skies and over unknown seas. Although not one young bird has made this flight before, together they know the route to take. The young female squawks again and again as she flies. By listening for other godwit voices, she stays with the flock, even in thick clouds and heavy rain. One day, a peregrine falcon hunting over an island swoops out of the clouds with wings folded and talon-tipped toes stretched out. The falcon aims straight for the young female, but she pumps her wings hard, climbs fast, and escapes. But another godwit isn't so lucky. Day after day and night after night, for nearly 8 days, the godwit keeps flying. The young female is thin. Her wings stroke slower. Still, she keeps going. Finally, there's green and brown ahead, and these signs say, "Welcome, godwits, welcome back, godwits." The young female swoops down with the flock to the New Zealand mudflats, where land mingles with the sea. She arrives with 2 final wing flaps and lands on wobbly legs. Then, folding her legs, she falls asleep. The young female doesn't sleep for long, though. She needs to eat to get back her strength. She'll stay in New Zealand for 2 years until she's ready to raise a family of her own. Then, when March brings cool winds, she'll once again join the godwit flock and make the long, long journey back to Alaska. So these little fun facts here, it says, godwits are amazing. Godwit chicks hatch after about 21 days. They're able to walk, swim, and find their own food almost immediately. Godwit adults getting ready to migrate molt and grow new feathers. In spring and summer, their feathers are reddish. By the time godwits begin their migration in September and October, their feathers are gray-brown. When they leave, over half their body weight is fat. This fat gives them the energy they need for that long flight. So that's why, when she was getting closer to New Zealand, it made a note to say that she was getting thin, that the young female was getting thin because she had already burned up a lot of her fat reserves. In 2007, researchers fitted one female bar-tailed godwit with a tracking device. Scientists studying the bird discovered that she flew non-stop for 7,270 miles, or 11,700 kilometers, from Alaska to New Zealand. Godwits don't fly non-stop on the return trip, however. They stop to feed for weeks, or even more than a month, in the Yellow Sea region of Korea and China. Then, when they arrive in Alaska, they're strong enough to mate and raise a new generation of godwit young. So they go non-stop from Alaska to New Zealand, but then on the way back, they make stops. They probably just can't handle that much continuous flying. Okay, so those were the 2 things I wanted to share with you before you move on to the next video, which is our migration activity. So, 2nd graders, this is Mrs. Cole signing off. I hope that you enjoyed the information that you learned about migration, and I hope that you enjoyed hearing about the young female godwit's long, long journey from Alaska to New Zealand. Thanks, everybody, and I will talk to you later. Bye, 2nd graders. Have a great day.